At some point in life, we all face a restlessness that seems to have no name. It's that feeling of weight, of constant wear, as if we were carrying on our backs responsibilities, opinions, judgments, and worries that don't belong to us. Sometimes it feels like the world is full of voices telling us who we should be, what we should feel, and how we should react. And without realizing it, we begin to care about everything, even about what doesn't matter. That is the root of modern anxiety. The feeling that we need to handle everything, be everywhere, reply to every message, please everyone, be perfect, be in control. But we weren't made for that. Our minds need space. Our souls need silence. Peace doesn't come from excessive control, but from accepting what lies beyond it. Stoicism, a practical philosophy born in ancient Greece and refined in Rome by thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, offers us a compass to navigate this sea of noise. One of its most powerful lessons is learning to discern between what depends on us and what doesn't. This distinction, as simple as it seems, has the power to completely transform our life experience. When we begin to cultivate the art of not caring about what doesn't matter, we're not becoming indifferent, cold, or distant. On the contrary, we are choosing to live more intentionally, more aligned with what is essential. We are freeing ourselves from the need to react to everything and everyone, from carrying unnecessary burdens, from being prisoners of others' expectations. Imagine someone who spends hours worrying about what others think of them, about what happened yesterday, what might go wrong tomorrow, about social media comments, constant comparisons, and the need to appear strong, successful, happy. Is that person really living, or just surviving in an exhausting cycle of reaction and self-judgment? What Stoicism proposes is precisely an exit from that cycle through a conscious choice, to focus only on what is within our control. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some are not. The key to tranquility lies in focusing only on what we can control." It sounds obvious, but hardly anyone lives that way. And that's why so many feel so overwhelmed. We live trying to change others, control the weather, predict the future, erase past mistakes. But that's a losing battle. It's like trying to hold back the wind with your hands. Stoicism teaches us to abandon that war. And by doing so, we find something that seems increasingly rare nowadays: serenity. True freedom begins when we stop reacting automatically to everything that affects us and start choosing what deserves our energy, attention, and presence. That's when life changes, not because the world changed, but because the way you look at it has transformed. The first step, then, is awakening. It's realizing how much you've been carrying unnecessarily, how many battles you've fought that weren't yours, how many times you've cared about something that won't make any difference in the long run. And all of this without even realizing it. The good news is that you don't have to keep living this way. The art of not caring about what doesn't matter is something you can learn. It's a skill, a practice. And like any practice, it starts small, but over time becomes a way of being. Often, we confuse not caring with a lack of empathy or with selfishness. But that's a distorted view. The true practice of not caring about what doesn't matter is born from a deep awareness of where to place our attention, our energy, and our time. And, interestingly, when we stop spending those resources on what's irrelevant, we become more present and available for what truly matters, including people. Imagine someone who's constantly worried about their image. This person tends to mold themselves to expectations, to avoid conflict, to seek approval. But in doing so, they disconnect from who they really are. When you live trying to please others, you lose yourself along the way. Serenity comes precisely from the opposite. From knowing who you are, what you believe in, what is within your control, and living accordingly. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest representatives of Stoicism, used to write in his journal that others' opinions should not steal our peace. He reminded himself that, ultimately, the only thing we can truly govern is our judgment, the way we choose to interpret the world around us. That's where transformation begins. When we realize that our peace doesn't depend on what happens, but on how we respond to what happens. This simple but powerful insight puts the reins of life back in our hands. It doesn't mean we'll stop feeling sadness, anger, or frustration, but we come to understand that we can choose what to do with those feelings. We can welcome them without being dominated by them. The art of not caring about what doesn't matter, therefore, is not an invitation to apathy. It's an invitation to awareness. It's learning to look at a situation and ask, does this deserve my energy? Will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Is this under my control? If the answer is no, then maybe the best thing to do is to let go. This practice helps us save emotional energy. It allows us to direct our attention to what is meaningful. Our values, our genuine relationships, our choices, our inner growth. The more you filter out what doesn't deserve your attention, the more space you create for what truly matters to flourish. This shows up even in the little things of daily life. How we react to traffic, to criticism, to our own mistakes, to delays. We can choose to get irritated, or we can take a deep breath and move on. We can spend hours stewing, or we can use that time for something constructive. We can compare ourselves to others, or we can focus on being better than we were yesterday. Peace is in our hands, but it must be chosen. And that choice is made daily in both small and big decisions. Not caring about what doesn't matter doesn't mean living in denial. It means living with clarity. It means recognizing that our time is too precious to be wasted on things that add nothing to our journey. Stoicism, far from being a cold philosophy, is a path of presence. It invites us to be more conscious, more centered, more serene. And it constantly reminds us that what we cultivate within is far more important than what we try to control outside. Life is short, and this truth becomes more evident with each passing day. We don't know how much time we have left, or how many chances we'll still have to look into the eyes of those we love, to say what we feel, to live authentically. That's why wasting energy on what doesn't matter isn't just a tiring habit. It's a theft of our own time. When you choose to care only about what matters, you begin to live more lightly. That doesn't mean a life without challenges, but a shift in how you face them. You start facing problems with more clarity, without dramatization. You begin to accept human flaws with more compassion. You start saying no without guilt, and yes with intention. It's a process. Sometimes we slip. Every now and then, we give attention to something that didn't deserve it. But that's okay. What matters is the path, not perfection. Stoicism teaches us to observe ourselves, to learn from mistakes, and to start over as many times as necessary. After all, each day is a new chance to choose more consciously. You'll notice that, over time, many of the things that once deeply shook you lose their power. A criticism doesn't sting as much. A plan gone wrong no longer feels like the end of the world. Comparing yourself to others loses its appeal. And this happens not because the world changed, but because you changed. Your perspective widened. You learned to filter. You learned to protect your peace as if protecting something sacred, because it is. This inner shift is liberating. It allows you to look inward and realize that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. That you don't need to be constantly rushing. That you can simply be, and that's enough. The art of not caring about what doesn't matter is, at its core, a return home. A return to what is essential. And the essential is simple: to live with clarity, with lightness, and with purpose. To love what is worthy of love. To serve with the best of what we have. To grow a little each day. And to let what's beyond our control follow its course, without letting it steal our peace. Serenity is not a distant destination, but a daily practice. And every time you choose not to react, not to absorb, not to carry what isn't yours, you get closer to it. One step at a time. One thought at a time. One choice at a time. And then one day you realize that life has become lighter. That your mind is quieter. That your heart is calmer. And that you are finally living with the presence and peace you always sought. Not because the world changed, but because you learned the art of not caring about what doesn't matter. If this content touched you in some way, if it helped you reflect and see life with more lightness and awareness, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It really helps the channel keep growing and spreading messages like this to more people who are also seeking peace, serenity, and purpose. Thank you for being here, and always remember, true freedom lies in choosing what deserves your attention. See you next time.